The galaxy was a chaotic place. Empires rose and fell across the vast expanse of space. Alliances shifted like sand, and contested resource zones became battlegrounds for proxy wars. In this tumultuous universe, mercenary groups flourished, offering their services to the highest bidder. They came from all species and backgrounds, but they shared one common understanding: never accept contracts against human special forces. Gorus Outpost hung in the shadow of a dying red sun, its sprawling market district a gathering place for those who sold violence for profit. The Nexus Cantina was packed with mercenaries from dozens of worlds when Vinthal pushed through the entrance. His 6 eyes scanned the room methodically, metallic skin reflecting the dim lighting in shimmers of copper and gold. Standing nearly 8 feet tall, the Shandori mercenary commanded attention without seeking it. He found an empty booth in the corner and settled in, his long frame barely fitting in the space designed for smaller species. A server droid approached, and Vinthal ordered a fermented nutrient solution, the Shandori equivalent of alcohol. As he waited, his bioelectric senses tingled. Someone was watching him. Vinthal of the collapsed Nebula Brigade, a voice called out. A small, hunched figure approached his table. "I'm Dex, representing interests that require your particular talents." The broker was a Minoxian, a species known for their affinity for wheeling and dealing. Their gray skin was dotted with communication implants, and their 4-fingered hands never seemed to stop moving. "I'm retired," Vinthal replied, his translator implant giving his voice a metallic edge. 20,000 credits might change your mind," Dex said, placing a data chip on the table. "A strategic outpost. Minimal resistance. Just needs to disappear." Vinthal's outer pair of eyes narrowed. "Whose outpost?" "Earth's 92nd Recon Unit," Dex replied casually. The cantina seemed to grow quieter. A few heads turned in their direction. Vinthal felt a chill run through his bioelectric field. "Human Special Forces?" Vinthal's voice dropped to a whisper. "You're asking me to hit HSF?" Dex nodded. "The Dark Nova Syndicate needs that outpost neutralized. They're blocking a major shipping route with their security checkpoints." Memories flashed through Vinthal's mind. The screams of his former squad as invisible attackers decimated them. The eerie calm voice over comms offering surrender terms even as plasma rounds cut through their armor. "Find someone else," Vinthal said, pushing away the data chip. A gravelly voice cut through the conversation. "Listen to your instincts, Shandori." From the shadows of a nearby booth emerged an ancient being, skin like weathered stone, eyes milky with age, but still sharp with intelligence. Crone Elder, a legendary bounty hunter who'd survived 3 centuries in the business, an almost impossible feat. "You know something about human forces, Elder?" Vinthal asked. The old mercenary limped closer, leaning on a cane fashioned from what looked like a modified rifle barrel. "I know that in my 270 years of hunting, I've lost 17 partners. 15 died of natural causes or common conflicts. 2 disappeared when we took a contract against a human outpost half the size of what they're offering you." Dex scoffed. "Superstition. The humans are physically weaker than most spacefaring species." "Strength isn't everything," Elder replied. "Those who went against human special forces either didn't return or came back changed. You cannot imagine how dangerous they are." Vinthal felt the weight of the old mercenary's words, but before he could respond, his personal communicator buzzed. A message scrolled across his retinal implant. "Your debt to the Thraxi cartel has been purchased by our client. Accept the contract or face collection. You have 1 hour." His heart sank. The Thraxi were notorious for their collection methods. They didn't kill debtors. They harvested them, selling organs and cybernetics to recoup losses. "I'll consider it," Vinthal told Dex, his voice resigned. As the broker walked away, Elder leaned in close. "Most mercenaries refuse to fight humans for good reasons. If you must go, be prepared to witness why." Vinthal downed his drink in one gulp, acid burning his 3 throats. He had no choice. The contract or his life. As he left the cantina, he wondered if there was any difference between the two anymore. The memory hit Vinthal like a physical blow as he sat in his cramped quarters aboard the transport ship. 5 orbital cycles ago, on a routine salvage operation at an abandoned human research station. Their intel had indicated the facility was deserted, scheduled for decommissioning after its research project concluded. They'd been wrong. His team of 8 had breached the airlock, spreading through the zero-gravity environment with practiced ease. The first sign something was amiss came when Narek, their point scout, went silent mid-report. Then Jex disappeared from their tracking grid without a sound. Something's here, Vinthal had warned the others. That's when gravity suddenly returned, slamming half of them to the floor while leaving specific corridors in 0G. The humans had been manipulating the environmental systems. A calm voice came over the station's comms. You have entered a restricted Earth Federation facility. Surrender your weapons. They laughed. 6 heavily armed mercenaries against what they assumed were a handful of human technicians. They'd still had the advantage of numbers. That laughter died when 3 of his team were incapacitated in under 30 seconds. The humans moved like shadows between gravity zones, using the disorientation to their advantage. Vinthal had barely escaped, dragging one wounded teammate to their ship while the others stayed behind to cover their retreat. The most disturbing part wasn't the skill or the tactics. It was the cold efficiency. No gloating, no excessive force. Just precise, controlled violence, and that same calm voice offering surrender terms until the very end. Vinthal shook off the memory as his ship's navigation system beeped, announcing their approach to Keldro's station, a neutral trading hub where he'd arranged to meet potential team members. For this mission, he needed the best, or at least the most desperate. Raxa was waiting at the arranged meeting point, her translucent Cetinus Vazri skin rippling with chromatophores that constantly adjusted to the lighting around her. As a former scout for her species' elite guard, she had an unparalleled ability to blend into surroundings and move without detection. 20,000 credits is good money, she said after Vinthal explained the job. But human special forces? That's suicide pricing. 25,000 for you, Vinthal countered. 5 up front. Her skin flashed a pattern of doubt, but she nodded. My clan needs the credits. The humans destroyed our primary breeding grounds in the Cygnus conflict. Their second recruit came in the form of Gorak, a mountain of muscle and cybernetics. The Thandorian heavy gunner had fought in a dozen campaigns across the Outer Rim, earning a reputation for durability rather than subtlety. His skin was a patchwork of scars and grafted armor plating that had become one with his flesh over years of battlefield surgeries. Humans, he grunted when told of the target, fought alongside them once, never against. Despite his reservations, the promise of enough credits to upgrade his failing cybernetics was too tempting to refuse. The final member joined them in a maintenance bay, Silo, an energy being encased in a containment suit. The species was unknown. Some said Silo was a collective consciousness rather than an individual. What was certain was their unmatched technical ability and skill at electronic warfare. Human systems are interesting. Silo's voice emanated from their suit, a symphony of harmonics rather than words. Primitive in design, but unpredictable in application. I accept your terms. With the team assembled, Vinthal laid out what little intelligence they had on the target. Earth's 92nd Recon Unit, stationed on an outlying moon of a gas giant in contested space. We need to understand what we're up against, Vinthal said. Silo, can you access any data on human combat tactics? The energy being interfaced with the station's networks, tendrils of plasma extending from their containment suit into access ports. After several minutes of silence, Silo disconnected. Humans are physically weaker than most combatants you've faced, they reported. Average strength, approximately 60% of Shandori baseline. Endurance comparable to Cetinus Vazri. Reaction speed, unremarkable. So why are they feared? Raxa asked, her skin displaying skepticism. Because, Silo continued, they possess 3 significant advantages. First, exceptional environmental adaptation. Humans can function in a wider range of conditions than most species without technological assistance. Second, they operate in perfect coordination under stress. Their neural patterns actually synchronize during combat. Third, and most concerning, psychological warfare. Gorak snorted. Mind games don't stop plasma bolts. Their outpost contains environmental control systems far beyond what's necessary, Silo continued, ignoring the interruption. They can selectively manipulate gravity, atmosphere composition, temperature, and electromagnetic fields within individual compartments. The facility becomes a weapon they control. The team spent a full cycle preparing, studying the limited information available about human combat doctrine and the outpost's layout. Silo managed to hack into a cargo manifest, revealing that the 92nd was testing some form of advanced stealth technology, possibly explaining their notorious ability to strike. Unseen, as they finalized their approach plan, Dex contacted them again. The syndicate is growing impatient, the broker warned. If you can't handle this job, they'll find others who can, and they'll ensure everyone knows why you failed. Venthal's outer eyes twitched in irritation. Tell your masters we depart within the hour. No more threats. After disconnecting, he turned to his team. Our approach will be indirect. We pose as a damaged merchant vessel requesting emergency docking. Once inside, we split into pairs. Raxa and I will locate and neutralize command staff while Gorak and Silo disable their environmental systems. And if we encounter resistance? Raxa asked, her skin now a dull gray of concern. We adapt, Venthal replied, not believing his own confidence. Like humans do, the human outpost orbited the third moon of a gas giant, its angular structure bristling with communication arrays and defense systems. From a distance, it looked like any other military installation, but as their disguised transport approached, Venthal noticed the precision of its design. No wasted space, no decorative elements, nothing but functional efficiency. Unidentified vessel. This is Earth Federation Outpost Sentinel. A calm voice hailed them. State your purpose and authorization. Silo had prepared for this, broadcasting forged credentials and a distress signal. Merchant Vessel Horizon Dawn requesting emergency docking. We've suffered drive, core instability after meteorite impact. There was a long pause before the response came. Approach vector transmitted. Follow exactly. Deviation will be considered hostile action. Their ship glided through a field of automated defense platforms, each tracking their movement with weapon systems that could vaporize them in seconds. Venthal felt his bioelectric field crackling with anxiety. They were being allowed in too easily. The docking bay was empty when they arrived, the massive door sealing behind them with a finality that made Rax's skin pulse with warning patterns. A decontamination field washed over their ship, standard procedure that secretly allowed Silo to deploy microscopic drones to map their surroundings. Minimal life signs detected, Silo reported. 17 humans total, most concentrated in the central command hub. Security systems active throughout. Bental Froneth. Only 17? For an installation this size? That's all my sensors can detect, Silo replied, uncertainty in their harmonic voice. They disembarked cautiously, weapons concealed but ready. A single human technician greeted them, a female with dark skin and eyes that missed nothing. Follow me to processing, she said without preamble. Your ship will be inspected and repairs authorized if verified. They followed her through sterile corridors. Venthal, noting the absence of other personnel. His bioelectric senses detected active systems within the walls. Surveillance, certainly, but also something else. Weapon systems? Environmental controls? At a junction, the technician paused. Wait here. Authorization is required before proceeding further. The moment she disappeared around a corner, Venthal gave the signal. They split into their assigned pairs, moving quickly through the corridors according to Silo's mapped route. For several minutes, they encountered no resistance, just empty hallways and sealed doors. Too easy, Venthal thought. Then the alarms began. Not blaring sirens as expected, but a soft, pulsing tone that seemed designed not to panic defenders, but to coordinate them. The lighting shifted subtly, certain corridors dimming while others brightened. "They're hurting us," Raxa whispered, her adaptive skin trying to match the changing light patterns. A squad of human security personnel appeared at the end of the corridor, 4 figures in light combat armor, armed with compact pulse rifles. Before Vinthal could signal for cover, Gorak opened fire with his heavy cannon, the thunderous weapon launching explosive rounds. The humans scattered with practiced precision, taking positions behind structural supports. No shouting, no panic, just immediate, coordinated response. Their return fire was measured and accurate, forcing the mercenaries into defensive positions. "Suppress and advance," Vinthal ordered. With Gorak laying down, covering fire, he and Raxa pushed forward, using their superior physical abilities to close distance. What happened next stunned them all. The gravity in their section of corridor suddenly reversed, sending them tumbling toward the ceiling while the human section remained normal. The disorientation lasted only seconds, but it was enough. 2 humans using ceiling-mounted tracks slid into position and fired netcasters, non-lethal weapons that entangled Gorak in molecularly bonded restraints. Raxa vanished, her adaptive camouflage rendering her nearly invisible as she flattened against a wall. Vinthal managed to stabilize himself against a support beam, firing his disruptor pistol to cover Silo's retreat. 1 human took a glancing hit, the energy bolt scorching their armor. They didn't cry out, just calmly rolled to cover and continued returning fire with methodical precision. "Fall back," Vinthal ordered. They retreated, abandoning Gorak, who roared curses as the humans secured him. Regrouping in a maintenance junction, Vinthal assessed their situation. 1 team member captured, their element of surprise lost. The station's communication system activated, and that same calm voice addressed them directly. "Attention, unauthorized combatants. You have engaged Federation personnel in a restricted military installation. If you wish to survive, withdraw immediately. This is your final warning." "They're tracking us somehow," Raxa hissed, her skin rippling with stress patterns. Silo's containment suit flickered with energy. "The decontamination field, it must have tagged us with nanoscale trackers." A message from Dex flashed on Vinthal's communicator. "Syndicate growing impatient. Complete objective within 6 hours, or collection teams deploy to your home territories." Failure is not an option. Vinthal felt rage building in his 3 hearts. They were pawns in a game much larger than a simple mercenary contract. But they were too deep now to turn back. "We need to reach the control center," he decided. "Disable their advantages, then extract Gorak on our way out." "The humans will be expecting that," Raxa countered. "Then we'll give them something unexpected," Vinthal replied. Through maintenance shafts and service tunnels, they worked their way deeper into the station. Silo interfaced with subsystems where possible, causing minor malfunctions to distract the defenders. Twice they encountered automated security drones, which Raxa disabled with silent precision. As they approached the central sections, they caught glimpses of the human defenders moving in pairs, communicating with subtle hand gestures rather than verbal commands. Their efficiency was unnerving. No wasted movement, no hesitation. Reaching a security checkpoint guarding access to the command level, they paused to observe. 2 humans stood guard, alert but not tense. Behind them, a reinforced door required biometric authorization. "I can mimic their communication signature," Silo whispered, but only briefly before their systems detect the intrusion. "How long will we have?" Vinthal asked. 45 seconds, perhaps less." Vinthal nodded to Raxa, who vanished into the shadows. Moments later, a small canister rolled toward the guards, releasing a cloud of fine particles. Not toxic, but designed to outline any cloaked or camouflaged intruders. The humans immediately responded, one covering the area with their weapon, while the other activated a countermeasure field. Neither panicked. They simply executed what was clearly a rehearsed protocol. In their focus on the potential cloaked threat, they missed Silo's approach from above, the energy being having detached part of their essence, to float through a ventilation duct. Tendrils of controlled plasma descended, interfacing with the door controls just as Vinthal launched his attack from the opposite direction. The first guard went down with a precision shot to their armor's joint, a non-lethal hit that nevertheless incapacitated their left arm. The second turned with remarkable speed, returning fire even as they called for backup. The door slid open, and Vinthal charged through, Raxa materializing beside him as they entered the command center. Inside, they found not the bustling nerve center they expected, but a minimalist space with only 3 humans present, 2 at monitoring stations and 1 standing calmly in the center. This central figure wore no visible rank insignia, but his bearing made his authority clear. The commander of the 92nd, Vinthal, realized. "So you ignored our warning," the commander said, his voice matching the station-wide announcements. No fear, no anger, just mild disappointment. Before Vinthal could respond, the overhead lights flashed once. The commander smiled faintly. "Your heavy weapons specialist is quite resilient," he noted conversationally. "He's already broken through the first set of restraints. My team had to sedate him for his own safety." Vinthal kept his weapon trained on the commander. "We're not here to talk. Yet here we are, talking," the commander replied. "You want control of this station's systems. You won't get it. What you can have is your lives if you leave now." The station's internal communications system activated. A voice reported, "Sir, we've neutralized the energy being. Its containment suit has been secured. Silo. Captured or worse." Vinthal felt his plan unraveling. "Ow!" Raxa demanded, her skin flashing patterns of confusion and fear. "How did you know our positions? Our capabilities?" The commander gestured to one of the monitoring stations, where a display showed thermal and electromagnetic imaging of the entire station. Every life form was highlighted, every energy signature cataloged. "We've been tracking you since before you entered the system," he explained. "Your broker's encryption was broken months ago. We know who sent you and why." Vinthal felt cold realization spreading through him. "This was a trap. Not for you specifically," the commander clarified. "For the Dark Nova Syndicate. They've been trying to disrupt our operation here for some time." One of the other humans spoke up. "Commander, sensors detect multiple ships dropping out of FTL at the system edge. Signatures match known Syndicate vessels." The commander nodded, unsurprised. "Right on schedule." He turned back to Vinthal. "Your employers never expected you to succeed. You were meant to trigger our defenses, revealing our capabilities and weaknesses before their main assault." Vinthal's rage boiled over. They had been sacrificial probes, nothing more. "What are you protecting here that's worth so much attention?" he demanded. The commander considered him for a moment before gesturing to the largest display screen. It showed a complex array of interlocking energy fields surrounding what appeared to be a tear in space-time itself. "Project Threshold," the commander said, "a stabilized wormhole generator capable of creating permanent transit points between distant star systems. It would eliminate the need for long FTL journeys, revolutionize commerce, a disaster response." He paused. "Or in the wrong hands, allow for instantaneous invasion of any connected system." Rax's skin paled to pure white. "The Syndicate wants to weaponize it. They want to destroy it," the commander corrected. "Because Earth controls the technology, and we've refused to allow military applications. They'd rather no one have it than see it used for peaceful purposes." A alarm sounded, different from the previous alert, more urgent. The display shifted to show multiple Syndicate warships entering the system, weapons hot. The commander turned to his crew. "Initiate defense protocol Echo. Prepare for potential evacuation of research personnel." Vinthal realized the magnitude of what was happening. This wasn't just a mercenary contract gone wrong. They had inadvertently become part of an operation that could trigger interstellar war. "What happens to us?" he asked. The commander's expression remained neutral. "That depends on what you do next." On the screen, Syndicate forces began launching fighter craft and assault shuttles. The station's automated defenses engaged, filling space with interceptor fire. In that moment, Vin Thal made his decision. He lowered his weapon. "Raxa," he said quietly, "stand down." Her skin flashed patterns of shock and uncertainty. But after a moment's hesitation, she too lowered her weapon. "Commander," Vin Thal said, "I believe we've been misled about the nature of this contract." A hint of something, perhaps respect, flickered across the human's face. "That's an unusually reasonable position for someone in your situation. We have information about the Syndicate's approach vectors and tactics," Vin Thal continued. "Dex shared operational details during our briefing." The commander nodded to one of his officers, who approached to take Vin Thal's weapons and data devices. Unlike the rough handling he expected, the human was professional and efficient, disarming him with practiced movements that weren't meant to humiliate. "You understand this doesn't erase your attack on my personnel," the commander said. "I understand," Vin Thal replied. "But perhaps it balances the scales somewhat." The station shuddered as the first wave of Syndicate weapons fire impacted the outer shields. Warning lights flashed, and the command center burst into coordinated activity. "Take them to secure holding," the commander ordered. "We'll deal with them after we resolve this situation." As they were led away, Vin Thal witnessed the human special forces in their element. Officers called out reports in calm, measured tones. Tactical displays updated with enemy positions and projected intentions. Combat teams moved through the station with practiced precision, taking defensive positions or escorting civilian researchers to safe zones. No shouting, no panic, just smooth, practiced efficiency that spoke of endless drills and absolute confidence in their training. In the corridor, they passed a group of combat specialists preparing for possible boarding actions. These weren't the administrative staff or technicians they'd encountered earlier. These were the true Special Forces operators. Their armor was more advanced, their weapons more specialized, and their demeanor more focused. They checked each other's equipment with practiced movements, communicating in shorthand phrases or simple nods. One of them, a squad leader based on the subtle markings on her armor, looked up as they passed. Her eyes met Vin Thal's, and he saw neither contempt nor hatred, just clinical assessment, categorizing him as a neutralized threat, nothing more and nothing less. They were secured in a holding area near the medical bay, where Vin Thal was surprised to find Gorak already conscious, his massive form restrained, but treated for the injuries sustained during his capture. Silo's containment suit was there as well, the energy being inside subdued but intact. "They could have killed us," Gorak rumbled, confusion evident in his deep voice. "The human who took me down, they had a clear shot at my central nervous cluster. They fired a disabling round instead." Before Vin Thal could respond, the station rocked with another impact. The lights dimmed briefly before emergency systems compensated. Through the transparent wall of their cell, they watched medical personnel rushing to prepare for casualties. A wounded security officer was brought in, one of those they'd fought earlier, now bleeding from shrapnel wound caused by the Syndicate attack. As the human was treated, Vin Thal realized something that had eluded him before. The famed human special forces weren't exceptional because of physical prowess or advanced technology, though their technology was indeed impressive. Their true strength lay in their approach to combat itself. Where most species glorified the warrior, celebrating strength, aggression, and individual prowess, humans had systematized warfare. They fought not as individuals seeking glory, but as components of a larger organism, each one fulfilling their function with machine-like precision while retaining the adaptability of biological intelligence. The station shuddered again, more violently this time. Warning klaxons sounded, and emergency bulkheads began to seal throughout the visible corridors. Their guard's communication device activated. All security personnel, prepare for potential boarders in sectors 7 through 9. Research staff to evacuation points. This is not a drill. The guard hesitated, looking at the prisoners, then at the evacuation routes, now filling with civilian personnel. A voice came over the station's main communication system. The commander, still calm despite the chaos erupting around him. "Attention, all hands. Syndicate forces have breached Outer Defense Ring Alpha. All combat units to assigned positions. Evacuation protocols are now in effect for non-essential personnel. The Guard made a decision, activating the cell's communication panel. Sir, what about the mercenary prisoners in medical holding? There was a brief pause before the commander responded. If they're secure, maintain position. If station integrity becomes compromised in your sector, use your judgment. What happened next surprised Vin Thal. The Guard did something to the control panel, and the restraints on all 3 prisoners deactivated. The evacuation routes are marked in green, the Guard said, opening the cell door. Don't try to access restricted areas. They're still locked down, and automated defenses are active. Your ship is in Docking Bay 3, currently intact. Make your choice quickly. With that, the human hurried away to join the defense efforts. They're letting us go? Rax's skin rippled with disbelief patterns. No, Vin Thal realized. They're just not wasting resources keeping us contained during an emergency. They've prioritized. Another explosion rocked the station, closer this time. Emergency lighting activated as main power fluctuated. We should leave, Gorak said, rubbing his wrists where the restraints had been. This isn't our fight. Vin Thal looked through the transparent wall at the medical bay, where human doctors worked frantically to stabilize wounded personnel. Beyond them, through another transparent partition, he could see combat teams moving with that same eerie coordination, preparing defensive positions against borders. Silo, Vin Thal said, turning to the energy being, "Can you access any station systems from here? Communication, sensors." The containment suit's lights flickered as Silo recovered. Limited access possible. Why? Because I think we've been on the wrong side of this conflict, Vin Thal replied. And I intend to correct that error. The next 20 minutes were chaos as syndicate boarding parties breached the outer hull in multiple locations. Through Silo's limited access to station systems, they monitored the defenders' communications and the progress of the battle. The human special forces fought with the same methodical efficiency Vin Thal had witnessed earlier, but they were outnumbered and fighting on multiple fronts. The syndicate forces, a mix of hired mercenaries and their own military units, pushed steadily toward the research sections where Project Threshold was housed. They're going to overrun the prototype, Raxa observed, watching tactical displays Silo had managed to access. Vin Thal had come to a decision. We're going to our ship, but not to escape. His team looked at him with varying degrees of confusion. The syndicate doesn't know we've switched sides, he explained. They'll read our ship's transponder as friendly. We can approach their command vessel, the one coordinating this attack, and disable it from within. You want us to attack the people who hired us? Gorak growled. They'll put bounties on us that will follow us to the edge of the galaxy. They already intended to dispose of us, Vin Thal countered. We were expendable assets, probes sent to test defenses before the main assault. Besides, he added, I don't know about your species, but Shandori believed debts must be repaid. They made their way through the station's increasingly damaged corridors, avoiding the main battle zones. Twice they encountered syndicate boarding parties and were forced to hide. Once, they stumbled upon the aftermath of a skirmish. 3 human defenders had held a choke point against at least a dozen attackers. All 3 humans were dead, but they'd taken most of their attackers with them. Vin Thal knelt beside one of the fallen humans, a young female whose armor identified her as part of the 92 ND's Combat Engineer Corps. Despite being outmatched, she died at her post, defending the evacuation route for the civilians. They don't retreat, he observed quietly. Not when others depend on them. When they reached Docking Bay 3, their ship was indeed intact, though the bay itself showed signs of damage from the ongoing battle. As they prepared for departure, a squad of human defenders burst in, weapons raised. Their leader, face streaked with blood and soot, recognized Vin Thal from earlier. You're the prisoners. Where do you think you're going? To end this fight, Vin Thal replied. The Syndicate flagship is coordinating the attack. We can approach it without raising alarms. The human's eyes narrowed with suspicion. Why would you help us? Because I've seen how you fight, Vin Thal said simply. Not for glory or credits or dominance. but for each other, because you limit your violence to what's necessary. He gestured to his team. They could have killed us all, but they chose not to. The squad leader studied him for a long moment before activating her communication device. Commander, the mercenary prisoners are at Docking Bay 3. They're proposing a counterattack on the Syndicate command ship. The commander's voice came through, still remarkably composed despite the sounds of battle in the background. Can they succeed? Unknown, sir. But our options are limited. A pause. Very well. Provide them with targeting data for the command ship's propulsion systems. If they can disable it, our reinforcements might arrive in time. The squad leader nodded to one of her team, who transferred data to Silo's systems. The Syndicate flagship is called Inevitable Conquest. Disable it if you can. If you run instead, understand that the 90-second has a long memory. Understood, Vintal replied. As they boarded their ship, Raxa confronted him. This is suicide. The Syndicate flagship will have more defenses than this entire station. Probably, Vinthal agreed, activating the ship's systems. But I'm tired of being expendable. They launched into space amid the chaos of battle. True to Vinthal's prediction, their ship's identification codes registered as allied with the Syndicate forces, allowing them to approach the massive command ship without challenge. Look at them, Gorak said as they flew past Syndicate assault craft. No formation, no coordination, just a swarm attacking en masse. It was true. Where the human defenders moved with precise coordination, the Syndicate forces relied on overwhelming numbers and firepower, accepting casualties as the cost of victory. As they neared the flagship, a leviathan of a vessel bristling with weapon emplacements, Silo integrated the targeting data from the humans with their own analysis. The propulsion control systems are located here, the energy being indicated on the ship's schematic. A precise strike could disable their maneuverability without destroying the vessel. And how do we deliver this precise strike? Raxa asked. Vinthal had already decided. We request emergency docking due to battle damage. Once aboard, Silo interfaces with their systems while we create a diversion. The plan worked better than expected. In the chaos of battle, the flagship's crew had little time to verify their credentials. They were granted access to a secondary docking bay, where they split up according to plan. Gorak and Raxa created the diversion, accidentally detonating a contained plasma charge in a cargo area far from their actual target. As alarms blared and crews rushed to contain the damage, Vinthal escorted Silo toward the propulsion control nexus. We have approximately 12 minutes before they realize we're not registered crew members, Silo's harmonic voice warned as they moved through service corridors. Vinthal's bioelectric senses were on high alert, detecting the flow of power through the ship's systems. Something feels wrong, he muttered. The energy distribution is unusual. They encountered minimal resistance. Most of the security forces had been dispatched either to the diversion or to prepare for possible boarding parties from the human station. The few crew members they passed paid little attention to them, assuming they belonged among the chaos of battle stations. When they reached the propulsion control room, Vinthal understood why his senses had been troubled. The room was not filled with the expected engineering crew. Instead, a single figure stood before a holographic display showing the battle outside, a Minoxian with familiar communication implants. Dex, Vinthal growled, raising his weapon. The broker turned, unsurprised. I calculated a 23% probability you might survive contact with the humans. I admit, I'm impressed you made it this far. You used us as test subjects, Vinthal accused. Sent us in knowing we'd likely fail just to gather intelligence on human defenses. Dex spread his four-fingered hands in a gesture of indifference. Business is business. The Syndicate pays for results. When direct approaches fail, indirect methods become necessary. Silo's containment suit glowed brighter as the energy being prepared to interface with the ship's systems. The propulsion controls are isolated from the main network. I cannot access them remotely. Dex smiled. Of course not. This ship was designed to resist electronic warfare, a lesson learned from previous encounters with humans. He touched a control on his wrist, and hidden ports in the walls opened, revealing automated defense turrets. Now, I'm afraid our business relationship must terminate. The turrets powered up, targeting locks, focusing on the intruders. Venthal's combat instincts took over. He threw himself sideways as energy beams lanced through the space he'd occupied a moment before, returning fire with his disruptor pistol. Dex took cover behind a reinforced console, drawing his own weapon. The Syndicate will cleanse this sector of human influence. Project Threshold will never be completed. As they exchanged fire, Silo began physically connecting to the propulsion control interfaces, tendrils of control plasma extending into the mechanical systems that couldn't be remotely accessed. Venthal provided covering fire, his multiple eyes allowing him to track both Dex and the automated turrets simultaneously. Why does the Syndicate want the project destroyed so badly? Venthal called out, trying to distract Dex while Silo worked. Stable wormhole technology would benefit everyone. Benefit? Dex laughed. It would give humanity an insurmountable strategic advantage. They claim peaceful intentions, but who truly believes that? The species that clawed its way from a single world to a major power in less than 3 centuries? The species whose military doctrines are built on concepts like total war and shock and awe? A direct hit from one of the turrets scored Venthal's shoulder, burning through his armor. He hissed in pain, but maintained his position. I've seen them fight. If they wanted galactic domination, they'd have more efficient methods than building transportation infrastructure. You're a fool, Dex spat. You've witnessed their special forces, how they function like a single organism, how they neutralize threats with terrifying efficiency. Imagine that capability deployed instantly anywhere in the galaxy. Silo's voice cut through their exchange. Propulsion override initiated. Engines powering down in 30 seconds. Dex's face contorted with rage. He lunged from cover, firing wildly at Silo's containment suit. Several shots connected, causing the energy being's form to fluctuate dangerously within its protective shell. Venthal took the opening, tackling the Monoxian with his superior strength. They crashed into a control panel, sparks flying as circuits overloaded. Dex fought with surprising ferocity, his smaller size making him difficult to pin down. The Syndicate has invested too much to fail now, Dex hissed, driving a hidden blade into a joint in Venthal's armor. Do you think betraying us will earn you mercy from humans? They'll discard you just as easily once you're no longer useful. The ship lurched suddenly as the main engines shut down. Alarms blared throughout the vessel, and the battle display showed the massive flagship beginning to drift, its coordinating role in the attack disrupted. Venthal's communicator activated. Rax's voice urgent over the channel. Venthal. Syndicate forces are retreating from the station. They've detected Federation reinforcements entering the system. Dex heard the message, and his struggles intensified. This isn't over. The Syndicate will. His words cut off as Venthal finally landed a solid blow, rendering the broker unconscious. Rising painfully, the Chandori mercenary moved to check on Silo, whose containment suit showed significant damage. Status? He asked. Operational, but compromised, Silo replied, their harmonic voice distorted. My containment field is failing. I require repairs within 2 hours or risk dissipation. Can you make it back to our ship? Affirmative. But we must hurry. Securing the unconscious Dex with restraints, Venthal contacted Raxa and Gorak, coordinating their extraction. As they made their way back through the increasingly chaotic flagship, crew members ran past them, more concerned with the failing ship systems than with potential intruders. When they reached their docking bay, they found Raxa and Gorak already preparing the ship for departure. Gorak's massive frame was scorched in several places, evidence of the diversion having become more complicated than planned. The Syndicate fleet is in disarray, Raxa reported, her skin displaying patterns of cautious optimism. With the command ship disabled, they've lost coordination. Human reinforcements are arriving through conventional FTL. Not many, but enough to turn the tide. They departed the flagship as it drifted powerless, its weapons systems offline, its role as command center neutralized. Other Syndicate vessels were already breaking formation, some retreating while others continued their attack with diminished effectiveness. As they navigated through the debris-strewn battlefield, a transmission came through on a Federation emergency frequency. The commander's voice, recognizing their ship's signature. Mercenary vessel, this is Outpost Sentinel. Your actions are appreciated. The 92nd acknowledges your assistance. Vinthal hesitated before responding. What of the station? Project Threshold. Damaged, but secure, came the reply. The prototype remains intact. When you're ready to talk terms, we'll be here. As they set course away from the battle, Vinthal considered their options. With Dex as their prisoner and evidence of the Syndicate's larger plans, they had valuable intelligence to offer the Federation, perhaps enough to negotiate clemency for their initial attack. Where to now? Gorak asked, his deep voice uncommonly subdued. The Syndicate will hunt us throughout known space for this betrayal. Vinthal looked at his team, battered, exhausted, but alive. We return to the station. Face the consequences of our actions. You trust the humans to be fair? Rax's skin rippled with skepticism. I trust them to be consistent, Vinthal replied. They could have killed us multiple times, but chose restraint. That means something. They approached the human station cautiously. It bore the scars of battle. Breached sections, scorch marks from energy weapons, debris floating around damaged docking arms. Yet it stood, its core system still functioning, its defenders still active. They were directed to a secondary docking bay and met by a security team led by the same squad leader who had given them the targeting data. Her armor was more damaged than before, her expression weary but resolute. The commander wants to see you, she said without preamble. All of you. Bring your prisoner. They were escorted through the battle-damaged station, passing repair crews and medical teams tending to the wounded. Vinthal noticed something remarkable. Despite the chaos, there was no panic, no recrimination. Each human performed their duty with the same focused efficiency they displayed in combat. The command center had been relocated to a secondary control room, the primary one presumably damaged in the attack. The commander stood reviewing damage reports, his uniform smudged with soot, a bandage visible on his forearm. He looked up as they entered, his expression unreadable. Your ship's sensors recorded everything that happened aboard the Syndicate flagship, he said without preamble. We monitored your communications. Vinthal straightened to his full height. Then we switched sides. We know you chose to intervene when you could have escaped, the commander clarified. The question is why? Because we were wrong, Vinthal said simply. About you. About this conflict. The Syndicate used US, intended to discard us. You treated us with more honor than our employers. The commander studied him for a long moment. Honor is an interesting concept coming from a mercenary. Even mercenaries can learn, Vinthal replied. For the first time, the commander's stern expression softened slightly. That's been my experience as well. He gestured to a display showing the ongoing skirmishes as the last Syndicate forces retreated. Your actions likely saved this station and Project Threshold. Federation intelligence will be very interested in your prisoner and whatever information you have about Syndicate operations. And our status? Vinthal asked. Technically, you're still hostile combatants who attacked a Federation installation, the commander said. However, circumstances allow for flexibility in classification. I'm recommending you be considered cooperative assets rather than prisoners of war. Meaning what exactly? Raxa asked, her skin showing cautious patterns. Meaning limited freedom within designated areas, debriefing by intelligence personnel, and eventual consideration for restricted Federation contracts, if you're interested in legitimate employment. Vinthal exchanged glances with his team. It wasn't freedom, but it was better than they deserved, and certainly better than what awaited them in Syndicate space. We accept your terms, he said finally. The commander nodded. Good. Your first debriefing begins in 3 hours. Until then, you'll be provided with medical attention and quarters. He turned back to his displays, effectively dismissing them. As they were led away, Vin Thal found himself reflecting on the events that had brought them here. They had underestimated the humans, especially their special forces, not just their combat capabilities, but something more fundamental. Their unity of purpose, their discipline, their adherence to principles, even in the heat of battle. 3 cycles later, their debriefings complete and their status formalized as cooperative assets, Vin Thal found himself in the station's observation lounge. The massive viewing window revealed the gas giant below, its swirling storms a kaleidoscope of amber and crimson. Federation repair ships surrounded the station, methodically addressing the battle damage. He sensed someone approaching, the squad leader who had encountered them multiple times during the conflict. Without her combat armor, she appeared smaller, but no less formidable. Her dark hair was cropped short, and a fresh scar ran along her jawline. "Lieutenant Harper," she introduced herself, taking a position beside him at the window. 92nd Recon Division. "Vin Thal," he replied, though she undoubtedly knew his name from reports. "The commander asked me to inform you that your energy-being companion has been stabilized. Our engineers found a way to repair the containment suit." Relief washed through Vin Thal's bioelectric field. "Thank you." Silo's existence was precarious. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the repair operations outside. "May I ask you something?" Harper finally said. "Why do so many mercenaries refuse contracts against human forces? Especially special forces units? We're not physically imposing compared to species like yours." Vin Thal considered the question carefully. "Before this mission, I would have said it was because of your unpredictability or your advanced technology. Now I know better." "And what do you know now?" she asked. "That what makes you dangerous isn't your bodies or your weapons," he replied. "It's that you fight differently than most species. Not for glory or dominance or even survival alone, but for each other, and for principles you refuse to compromise, even when it would be expedient to do so." Harper nodded slowly. "That's part of it. There's more," Vin Thal continued. "Most species evolve as apex predators or prey on their homeworlds. Predators like the Thandorians," he gestured to where Gorak sat across the lounge, "fight with overwhelming force. Prey species like the Cetinus Vazri," he nodded toward Raxa, "rely on stealth and ambush. But humans were persistence hunters," Harper supplied. "Not the strongest or fastest, but capable of tracking prey to exhaustion through endurance and coordination." "Exactly," Vin Thal agreed. "You don't try to overpower enemies or hide from them. You wear them down systematically. You plan, you adapt, you coordinate with a precision that's unsettling to witness." He turned to face her directly. "And when you commit to an objective, you pursue it with a determination that borders on fanaticism." Harper smiled slightly. "We call it mission focus. The rest of the galaxy calls it terrifying," Vin Thal replied, "especially when combined with your ethical constraints." Her expression turned quizzical. "Our ethical constraints make us more frightening." "Absolutely," Vin Thal said. "A predator that kills indiscriminately is dangerous but predictable. Your special forces units could easily slaughter their opposition. You have the capabilities. But you choose precision over devastation, restraint over dominance. That control violence, that selective application of force. It's unnerving." Harper considered this. "I never thought of it that way." "Few humans do," Vin Thal observed. "But ask any mercenary who's encountered your special forces and survived. They'll tell you the same thing I'm telling you now. We don't fear you because you're stronger or faster or even smarter than us. We fear you because you're implacable, methodical, and worst of all, you think you're righteous." He turned back to the window, watching as a repair drone delicately welded a breach in the station's outer hull. That combination is why alien mercenaries refuse contracts against human special forces. Harper remained silent for a long moment before responding. "Thank you for your honesty. It's illuminating to hear an outside perspective." As she turned to leave, Vin Thal spoke again. "Lieutenant, one question of my own, if I may." She paused. "Go ahead." "During the attack, when the situation was most dire? Your guard released us. Was that ordered? Harper's expression revealed nothing. The commander gave that guard discretion to use their judgment. What they chose to do with that discretion was their own decision. A decision that saved our lives and possibly this station, Vin Thal noted. A calculated risk, Harper corrected. One that happened to pay off this time. After she departed, Vin Thal remained at the window, contemplating their future. The syndicate would never forgive their betrayal. They were effectively exiles now, dependent on human goodwill, a precarious position for any mercenary. Yet he couldn't bring himself to regret their choice. They had glimpsed something rare in the heat of battle, an adversary who fought not from hatred or greed or bloodlust, but from duty and principle. An enemy who would kill when necessary, but preferred to incapacitate, who valued life, even enemy life, when there was any alternative to taking it. Such restraint in a species so clearly capable of devastating violence was perhaps the most unnerving thing of all. 6 cycles later, as their status transitioned from cooperative assets to provisional contractors, Vin Thal found himself back in a cantina, much like the one where their misadventure had begun. This one, however, was located in Federation space, its clientele a mix of species, including a significant human presence. Raxa and Gorak sat with him, while Silo's repaired containment suit hovered nearby. They were awaiting their first legitimate assignment. Escort duty for a research vessel charting potential sites for Project Threshold expansion. A group of young mercenaries occupied a nearby table, loudly discussing a lucrative contract they'd been offered to raid what they believed was a minimal human outpost. Easy money, one of them boasted, a reptilian Drazhak with scales still shiny from youth. The client says it's just a research station with basic security. 20 humans tops. Vin Thal exchanged glances with his team. He rose from their table and approached the young mercenaries, his imposing height causing them to fall silent as his shadow fell across their table. A word of advice, he said quietly. Verify your intelligence. If that outpost belongs to any human special forces division, the 92nd, the 85th, any of them, walk away. No matter the payment. The Drazhak sneered. Why? They're just humans. Soft-skinned primates. Vin Thal's 6 eyes fixed on the young mercenary. That's what I thought once. Then I saw what they're capable of. He gestured to his team. We all did. What happened? Another mercenary asked, curiosity overcoming bravado. Vin Thal considered how to answer, how to convey the combination of precision, coordination, and principled lethality that made human special forces so uniquely terrifying among the galaxy's combatants. We learned why alien mercenaries refuse contracts against human special forces, he said finally. The hard way. He turned to leave, then added over his shoulder. No one with sense makes that mistake twice. As he rejoined his team, Rax's skin displayed amusement patterns. You enjoy playing the ominous veteran, don't you? If it saves them from what we experienced, I'll play whatever role is needed, Vin Thal replied. Through the viewport behind their table, a Federation patrol ship passed by, its running lights cutting through the darkness of space. Somewhere aboard that vessel were humans like those they'd fought, disciplined, coordinated, and bound by principles that somehow made them more effective rather than less. Vin Thal raised his drink in a private toast to adversaries who had become employers, to enemies who had shown more honor than allies. The galaxy was a chaotic place, filled with threats and opportunities in equal measure. But one constant remained, a truth now written in his scars and memories. Those who underestimated human special forces rarely lived to make the same mistake again. And that was why alien mercenaries refused such contracts.